So here's what First Take was breaking down earlier today. About a month back, the talk around the league was that the Los Angeles Lakers had been in discussions to potentially acquire Donte Divincenzo. According to what was said on the show, those conversations didn't go anywhere, and it sounded like Minnesota didn't even seriously engage before moving on. But that wasn't the only name in play. The panel brought up Caldwell-Pope, someone Lakers fans remember well from the 2020 title run, a player many believe the team never should have moved on from in the first place. As it was explained on the program, LA had looked into ways to bring him back, but instead, he landed in Memphis as part of the deal involving Desmond Bane. So far, nothing further has materialized, but new reporting from Jacob Rood of Silver Screen and Roll was mentioned, suggesting that a reunion between the Lakers and Caldwell-Pope could still be possible depending on how things develop in Memphis. The hosts pointed out that Memphis just locked up Jaren Jackson Jr. with an extension, so they might prefer to head into the season seeing exactly how Caldwell-Pope fits with Ja Morant, perhaps even filling a role similar to what Bane has provided. They could experiment with him at the 3 at times. His stint last year in Orlando wasn't impressive, but the show emphasized that it might be more about context than decline. Caldwell-Pope's best years came playing alongside elite offensive engines, guys like LeBron James in Los Angeles and Nikola Jokic in Denver, players who can bend a defense with a single dribble and make the game easier for everyone around them. In Orlando, the offensive ecosystem was completely different. There wasn't that same level of high IQ playmaking or the kind of floor vision that can consistently put him in rhythm. The panel pointed out that for a player like Caldwell-Pope, those tiny details matter. Without a top-tier creator collapsing the defense, forcing rotations, and delivering pinpoint passes right into his shooting pocket, he's often left having to create off the bounce or shoot under tighter coverage, situations where he's simply less effective. It's not that his skill set diminished, it's that his environment shifted. The numbers back it up. His catch-and-shoot percentages spike dramatically when paired with superstars who can manipulate the defense and open up the floor. That's why the panel felt it's no coincidence he's looked his sharpest in systems built around stars who demand constant attention, giving him that extra half-second to square up and let it fly. The thinking was, if you put him next to someone like Luka Doncic, his production could rise again. But in Memphis, there's a chance he could remain just okay, not bad, but not reaching the impact level he's known for. And if the Grizzlies find themselves stuck in the middle of the standings, maybe fighting for a play-in spot, that could be the window for the Lakers to make a move. The trade framework discussed was Gabe Vincent and Maxi Kleber for Caldwell-Pope. In that scenario, Memphis would clear some salary and roster flexibility without giving up future assets, while LA would add a proven 3-and-D veteran who fits seamlessly alongside their stars. The panel agreed it's the kind of deal that makes more sense closer to the trade deadline, when both teams have a clearer picture of their season. If Caldwell-Pope is playing at a solid but unspectacular level, say, shooting around 38% from deep instead of 42%, Memphis could decide it's better to reset around Ja and Jaren and prepare for a bigger roster overhaul. For the Lakers, the bonus is that his current contract aligns perfectly with their long-term salary plans, making it not just a basketball fit, but also a front office win. On the show, they dug even deeper into why Caldwell-Pope's contract makes this discussion so intriguing. He's set to make $21.6 million this season, with a player option for the same amount next year. And the consensus from the table was that he's almost certain to pick that up. The Lakers could try to work out a longer deal with him, but the thinking was they'd probably just let him opt in and treat it as an expiring contract, which opens up a lot of strategic options. If the front office were to structure something like that Gabe Vincent-Maxi Kleber swap for Caldwell-Pope during the season, it would actually free up a little more than $1 million in space, making room for another roster addition before the playoff. Because salaries are prorated in season, the Lakers could maneuver to keep their depth intact while still having flexibility to chase other pieces. They also pointed out that the team has explored deals involving Gabe Vincent and even Jared Vanderbilt in the past, and that's where the decision gets tricky. Losing Vincent is one thing, but Vanderbilt's defensive versatility is much harder to replace. His length, switchability, and energy give LA a dimension few others on the roster can provide. A rookie like Dalton Neck might eventually bring some of that presence, but expecting him to step into Vanderbilt's role right away would be unrealistic. That's why the panel kept circling back to the idea of moving Vincent and Kleber, rather than someone like Vanderbilt. From Memphis's perspective, it would open up meaningful cap flexibility for next season, giving them more room to either re-sign key players, absorb another contract in a future trade, or become a more aggressive player in free agency. For Los Angeles, it's not just about adding Caldwell-Pope's two-way presence without sacrificing their best defensive specialist. It's about positioning themselves for the bigger picture. Caldwell-Pope's $21.6 million expiring deal becomes far more than just a short-term roster upgrade. That expiring slot immediately turns into one of the most valuable tools a front office can have in the modern NBA. A clean, mid-sized salary that can be paired with picks and players to chase a star without gutting the roster. It's the kind of asset that keeps your championship window open longer because it gives you options, both during the season and next summer. If a superstar like Giannis Antetokounmpo or Nikola Jokic ever signaled they were ready for a change of scenery, the Lakers could step into the conversation with a package that includes Caldwell-Pope's contract, multiple first-round picks, and young, high-value talent like Austin Reeves. Moves like this are about more than just the immediate return. They're about flexibility, leverage, and making sure you're ready the moment an elite player becomes available. In the NBA, the difference between watching a superstar land somewhere else and bringing him to your team often comes down to whether you already have the right contract slots and assets lined up. In this case, the Vincent and Kleber route gives LA the present-day boost of Caldwell-Pope and the future upside of a trade chip that could fundamentally alter their championship trajectory. Even if no mega deal materializes, the expiring contract alone could be valuable. If Caldwell-Pope came in and played well, he'd help immediately. If he was just good, not great, the Lakers could scale back his role, let the contract come off the books, and keep their cap sheet clean for the future. It was also mentioned that the team has its eyes on preserving flexibility for as far out as 2027, and this type of move fits that strategy. Caldwell-Pope will be 32 at the time of a potential trade, turning 33 later in the season. Despite his age, his durability stands out. 77, 76, 76, and 77 games played over the last 4 years. Availability matters, and he's been remarkably consistent in that regard. His three-point shooting has been more up and down, though. Last year in Orlando, he hit just 34.2%, from deep on 4.3 attempts per game. Compare that to his seasons in Denver, 40.6% 2 years ago, 42.3% the year before that, and it's clear he's capable of elite efficiency when paired with high-level playmaking. That was the underlying point First Take kept hammering. His shooting drop-off might not be a sign of decline at all. In systems built around stars like Jokic or LeBron, he thrived. In Orlando, where creating open looks was a challenge, his numbers naturally dipped. The question now is whether Memphis provides the kind of offensive environment where he can bounce back, or if the Lakers will be in position to bring him home before the deadline and reap the benefits themselves. One of the biggest concerns surrounding him right now is the noticeable drop in his three-point percentage. Just a season prior, he was hitting nearly 41% from deep. But last year, that number fell to 34% on essentially the same volume. That's an 8-point drop without any change in attempts, which raises the question, did he truly regress that much? Or was it more about the circumstances around him? Personally, I lean toward the lack of playmaking being the main factor. Last season, he appeared in 77 games, logging 29.6 minutes per night. He averaged 7.1 field goal attempts per game, shooting 43.9% from the floor overall. From three-point range, he connected on 34.2% of his 4.3 attempts per night, and inside the arc, he converted at a 59% clip on 2.8 attempts. His effective field goal percentage sat at 54.3%. At the free throw line, he was solid, hitting 86.3% on limited trips. Beyond scoring, he added 2.2 rebounds, 2 assists, 5 steals, half a block, and 9 points per game. Given the right situation, like joining a team such as the Lakers, there's a real chance he could regain his rhythm. Playing alongside high-level playmakers like LeBron James, Luka Doncic, or even Austin Reeves would allow him to operate more efficiently, focus on his defensive strengths, and find better quality looks from deep. In the right role, he could become a more consistent threat from three while still bringing value on the defensive end. Hey everyone, what's up? So, on First Take today, they really dug into the discussion about the Lakers' top scoring options, especially after that Bleacher Report ranking came out, naming Austin Reeves, LeBron James, and Luka Doncic as the league's best big threes. But, as you might expect, a lot of fans were quick to ask, what about DeAndre Ayton? Shouldn't he be the third option instead of Austin Reeves? Well, the analysts on the show agreed it's a great question, and something worth breaking down. Personally, I've talked about this before. When the Lakers signed Ayton, I had some hopes, but also some questions. And even when it comes to Austin Reeves, I've shared my concerns that he might actually end up being the fourth option on the team, not the third. Mainly because Luka Doncic is the clear go-to guy. Luka handles the ball nearly 90% of the time, and it's his team to run, with everything flowing through him. One of the things First Take highlighted is how Luka operates with his favorite outlet being the center, who acts as a lob threat. That's the classic pick-and-roll setup where Luka uses his dribble to collapse the defense, then dumps a lob or an easy pass to his big man running the floor. We've seen it a lot with Dallas and how Jackson Hayes fit into that role last season, though teams like Minnesota found ways to disrupt it. But the key difference is that DeAndre Ayton isn't just limited to catching lobs. He's got a wider offensive skill set. You can feed him the ball in the post, and he can score in a bunch of different ways. Plus, he can pop out and shoot from 10 to 15 feet. Which opens up the floor. This versatility makes it harder for defenses to guard that Luka-Ayton pick and roll because they can't just sag off the big man. It forces teams to make tough decisions. The analysts pointed out that last year, Ayton was actually fourth in the entire NBA in pick and roll efficiency. And now, paired with Luka, who's arguably the best in the league at running that kind of offense, his ranking should only improve. You remember, the best duo last season was Jaylen Brown and Cade Cunningham. But now you get Luka and Ayton. And don't forget, Austin Reeves also stepped up his playmaking when Luka was on the bench, working in tandem with Jackson Hayes in those two-man games. Even LeBron James was mixing into those sets more than usual, creating some dynamic offensive options. Now, looking at LeBron's style, he loves to look for those weak-side corner threes and kick out to shooters, very similar to how Luka likes to operate, except Luka's favorite play is lobbing to his big man. So, there's definitely a natural synergy between the play styles of these guys. Because of all this, First Take made a strong case that DeAndre Ayton should be, and very likely will be, the third option on the Lakers. And looking ahead to the post-LeBron era, Ayton could even slide up to become the team's second option because he doesn't need plays run for him to score. He's capable of making plays on his own. Meanwhile, Luka will continue to pick apart defenses and create opportunities for everyone on the floor, making those around him look better. The show's hosts also reflected on how Ayton compares to other big men Luka has played with, guys like Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, and Jackson Hayes. They agreed Ayton is the best so far, especially because of his ability to stretch the floor and be a consistent lob threat. Sure, Maxi Kleber has some similar qualities, but he's not quite at Ayton's level. They also brought up concerns about Ayton's mindset and motor, which remain a question mark. Will he stay fully engaged and buy into the team's system, or could inconsistency hold him back? Despite those concerns, the consensus was that if he can bring his best, Ayton has all the tools to be a major offensive and defensive contributor alongside Luka and the rest of the squad. So, yeah, when you're talking about the Lakers' big three, the conversation naturally leans toward LeBron, Luka, and DeAndre Ayton. Of course, there's still a lot to be determined with roles and minutes, but the potential is definitely there. All right, moving on. First Take also tackled the big question about who really makes up the Lakers' top 3 options on offense. The straightforward answer? LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and Austin Reeves. Those are the 3 guys the team needs to figure out how to maximize and fit together. Now, Austin Reeves is expected to be the co-star alongside Luka once the LeBron era eventually winds down. He's likely to command a contract north of $30 million this offseason, which reflects the perception of his growth over the past couple of years, especially last season, and what he could bring going forward. But here's the thing. While many expect Reeves to be the 3rd option, the First Take hosts pointed out that DeAndre Ayton might naturally take that spot. In fact, on many nights, Ayton could even operate as the 2nd option. LeBron, they said, will still get his points, but will pick his spots more strategically. We've seen it the last few years, where LeBron might have a slow first half and then explode for 25 or 28 points later in the game. Luka, on the other hand, tends to dictate the pace early, making the first quarter his time. He'll aggressively go after 20 to 30 points early on, sometimes taking half of his total shots in that opening frame alone. So naturally, the dynamic could be that LeBron plays more off-ball and saves his energy for bursts later in the game. Austin Reeves might follow a similar pattern, while DeAndre Ayton could be the early punch the team needs. The host said it wouldn't surprise them at all if Ayton averages something like 12 points just in the first quarter, feeding off Luka's aggression and constant look to get him the ball inside. Over the whole game, Ayton could end up with around 18 points, with a heavy chunk coming early, when Luka is most aggressive in feeding him. Meanwhile, LeBron would play more of a catch-and-shoot, slashing role, scoring points sporadically throughout the game. When Luka sits, LeBron takes over the primary scoring role and shows the aggression we're used to seeing from him. Interestingly, First Take pointed out that Luka likes to let others eat early on, sometimes barely shooting in the first quarter, letting teammates build momentum. Then, he'll take over in spurts during the middle quarter, scoring several baskets in a row to keep the team rolling. So, looking at how these 3 might function together, LeBron will conserve energy, looking to the sidelines or working off Luka's playmaking during the regular season. But when he does attack, you can expect big scoring bursts, finishing with 20-plus points most game. With all this orbiting around Luka's dominant role, Ayton and Reeves are expected to slide in as complementary pieces, fitting their scoring around Luka's flow. The balance between these 3 will be fascinating to watch as the season progresses, especially with LeBron gradually adapting his role and Luka carrying the offensive load. Now, wrapping it up, First Take really emphasized how the offense will flow with all these pieces moving together. Guys ready to catch and shoot threes, cutting to the basket, and making the floor dynamic. They suggested Austin Reeves will likely settle more into that catch-and-shoot role at times, spacing the floor and knocking down those important triples. But here's where DeAndre Ayton really comes into his own. With the right lineups spread throughout the game, you'll see Ayton out there alongside Luka, systematically dismantling defenses. He's going to feast inside, scoring on putbacks, finishing around the rim, and capitalizing on plays Luka creates for him. First Take made it clear, this is where Ayton thrives, and that's where his impact will be most noticeable. So, don't be surprised if as the season rolls on, you check the box score and see Ayton averaging something like 15 to 18 points a night. You might even see Austin Reeves putting up similar numbers. That doesn't mean Reeves is regressing. In fact, he could be more efficient than ever. It's just that Ayton will be the go-to guy inside, scoring consistently off Luka's setups and getting a steady flow of looks. We're talking about a player who might get around 5 easy baskets per game just from plays Luka feeds him. That's a huge boost to the offense. With LeBron, Luka, Ayton, and Reeves all sharing the scoring load, it's easy to imagine this team having multiple guys averaging near or above 15 points. In fact, First Take pointed out that if last year's trend of having 3 20-point scorers continues or even improves, This Lakers roster might push that to 4 players, averaging around 15 to 20 points per game. Imagine Luka putting up 30, LeBron hovering around 22 to 23, and both Ayton and Reeves contributing solid double-digit scoring nights consistently. That kind of balanced offensive attack would make them incredibly difficult to guard and would open the door to plenty of offensive creativity and efficiency. As always, this is a conversation starter, so I want to hear from you. What do you think about this projected hierarchy? Do you see Ayton really stepping into that third or even second option role? How do you feel about Reeves's evolving role? Drop your thoughts down in the comment. And hey, if you enjoyed this breakdown and want to keep up with more content like this, hit that like button. It really helps out. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, everyone. Catch you in the next one. What's up, everyone? Earlier today on First Takeover at ESPN, there was an interesting segment about a name that's been tossed around quite a bit, Ben Simmons. I've been getting messages from a lot of you about him, so let's break it down exactly how it was discussed and whether it could make sense. They started by pointing out the obvious. If the Lakers, or any team in this position, were to bring him in, it would have to come via trade. That part is clear. But depending on the pieces you'd move and the structure of that trade, Simmons could, in the right context, be a better fit than people might expect right now. Now, one thing that stood out from the discussion was his age. Simmons is still on the right side of 30, just turned 29 this July, which surprises a lot of people who feel like he's been in the league forever. This is a player who, not too long ago, was viewed as a franchise cornerstone. In fact, one of the analysts recalled how, years back, certain voices in sports media were even predicting he'd take over the league. Obviously, that narrative didn't age well, but the talent was always undeniable. The conversation then shifted to what Simmons actually brings at this stage of his career. He's gone from being the guy to being a role player who might only get a veteran minimum deal in today's market. And much of that decline, they said, has been self-inflicted. Mental hurdle, reluctance to shoot, and a tendency to get in his own way. But in the right system, on the right team, his unique skill set could still be extremely valuable. One of the comparisons thrown out was a bigger version of Draymond Green, someone who can guard multiple positions, operate at the 4 or even the 5, and still function as a playmaker or point guard when needed. That's where Simmons' versatility becomes intriguing. In theory, he can slide into any position from 1 through 5. Practically speaking, he's best used at the 4 or 5 because of his size. But here's the sticking point. It's not that he can't shoot from 3, it's that he flat out refuses to take those shots. And that's a real problem in today's game. They pointed out how a player like Russell Westbrook, for example, has poor three-point percentages, but is at least willing to take the shot, which keeps defenses honest. Simmons' refusal to even attempt it allows defenses to completely sag off, clog the paint, and disrupt the team's offensive flow. The panel broke down how this impacts spacing. When Simmons has the ball beyond the arc and defenders know he won't shoot, everyone collapses toward the rim, cutting off lanes for teammates and forcing tougher shots late in the clock. Simply taking the open shot, make or miss, at least forces defenses to guard you, lets your teammates establish rebounding position, and keeps the offense in rhythm. Simmons, by avoiding those looks entirely, limits his own impact on that end of the floor. From there, they explored his ideal role. Without a LeBron James-type presence handling primary playmaking duties, Simmons could thrive as a point forward, even off the bench. He could anchor second-unit offense, facilitate in half-court sets, and create mismatches. But with stars like LeBron and even other ball handlers already in place, that value might be diminished. Defensively, though, the upside is huge, and this was a big focus on First Take. Simmons has the size, length, and agility to legitimately defend all 5 positions when he's locked in. At 6'10" or 6'11", he can hold his ground against bigs, switch onto guards, and thrive in a system that demands constant switching and rotation. Under a coach who values defensive versatility, that's gold. The question becomes whether he can return to that elite defensive form after everything he's been through physically and mentally. And that's where they left it before moving to the next point. Simmons offers incredible defensive flexibility, but the offensive limitations are hard to ignore. The real question for any team, including the Lakers, is whether they need another player who can defend everywhere but could be a liability when the ball is in his hands beyond the paint. Picking up where the First Take crew left off, they asked the big question: do the Lakers really want to bring in another player who's a clear offensive question mark, at least from a shooting standpoint? The comparison came up to someone like Jared Vanderbilt, except they quickly made the point that Simmons, for all his flaws, is still more polished on the offensive end. Even without the three ball in his game, Simmons has shown he can get into double figures in scoring. Over his career, he's averaged around 13 points a night, and in his prime years, that was closer to 15. At his best, he flirted with triple-doubles on a regular basis. What the panel emphasized was that if you bring Simmons in at this stage, you're not asking him to be the guy. You're looking for him to fill a bench role, provide a steady 6 points, grab a handful of rebounds, and dish out a few assists in limited minutes. They pointed out that last year he put up about 5 points, 5 boards, and 6 assists. Production that, in the right role, could be exactly what you'd want from him. And because he'd likely be coming in on a veteran minimum deal, the risk is low and the upside is real. If it doesn't work out, he's still a movable salary piece for future trade. From a roster construction angle, adding Simmons could even free you to move other rotation players if needed. His ability to defend multiple positions, play as a small ball 5, and help protect the rim gives you flexibility. He's not going to lead the league in blocked shots, but he can contest and disrupt plays inside. The First Take crew noted that in limited minutes last season, he still averaged about half a block per game. Not elite, but useful, especially when paired with his ability to switch defensively. There was also talk about how you could deploy him offensively. You could run certain sets with Simmons at center, spreading the floor with 4 shooters while he facilitates from the top of the key. He could operate in pick-and-roll actions as a passer, or even as a lob target for someone like Luka Doncic. Not that he's dunking over everyone in sight, but he's capable of finishing above the rim when the opportunity's there. The main takeaway was this: if the Lakers were already a fully built contender and just needed an extra versatile piece for depth, Simmons would make a lot of sense as that cherry on top. But if you're counting on him to push the team into title contention on his own, that's where the skepticism comes in. His impact would depend heavily on how well he plays, how engaged he is defensively, and whether he can stay healthy. In their view, Simmons could make the Lakers better on defense right away, but they framed him more as a supplemental move. The kind of signing you make after pulling off a bigger trade, like if they went out and got someone like Andrew Wiggins, then turned to Simmons to round out the roster. In that scenario, he's extra insurance, someone who can give you valuable minutes and versatility without costing you much. But as a standalone addition, that's where it gets harder to justify him as the piece that changes everything. Before wrapping that part of the conversation, they looked briefly at his recent numbers. Between his time in Brooklyn and with the Clippers last season, Simmons played 51 games, averaging about 22 minutes per night. His touches and shot attempts were limited, just over 4 field goal attempts per game, which again reinforced the point. You'd be bringing him in for specific, contained responsibilities, not to be an offensive centerpiece. Continuing from the previous points, the analysts dug deeper into Simmons' recent numbers to give a clearer picture of what he might bring if signed. Last season, across his stints with the Clippers and Brooklyn, Simmons appeared in 51 games, averaging about 22 minutes per contest. When you break down his shooting, he only attempted 3 shots per game with the Clippers and about 5 attempts with Brooklyn. Overall, he shot an efficient 52% from the field. But remember, this mainly came from inside the arc since he rarely steps out to shoot threes. On the free throw line, Simmons actually had one of his better seasons, hitting nearly 73% on a very limited 6 attempts, showing some improvement, but still a small sample size. Statistically, he contributed roughly 5 rebounds, close to 6 assists, about a steal per game, half a block, and averaged around 5 points nightly. The panel noted that while per 36-minute stats don't tell the whole story, they can hint at his potential output if given starter-level minutes. Projected across 36, Simmons would be putting up just over 8 points, 9 assists, 8 rebounds, about 1.5 steals, and a full block per game. Those numbers underscore his all-around game and defensive impact more than pure scoring, which is why he's still considered a valuable, versatile piece for certain roles. Looking specifically at his numbers with the Clippers, a small sample of 3 field goal attempts per game, he averaged 3 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, and half a block. In context, that's exactly the kind of bench production the Lakers might want. Solid, efficient, and versatile. Wrapping up the conversation, the First Take analysts emphasized, this is still very much a debate. Is Simmons the right fit? Will he buy into a more limited role? Could he bounce back to be a defensive force and a facilitator off the bench? These questions remain open, which is why they invited viewers to weigh in and share their opinion. And of course, the segment ended with the usual reminder. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button to support the content, subscribe to stay updated, and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. That's it for today's deep dive on Ben Simmons and the Lakers' possible off-season moves. Thanks for watching, and until next time.